is this idea that Donald Trump, was sort of, I've even heard people say he was blackmailed into this by the
a lot
Israelis.
of people think that.
That's not true, dude.
No?
It's just not. That's just not how Donald Trump operates.
Can you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein Files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein Files were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. So you're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein Files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing.
or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein Files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like, say this with all candor, like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein Files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein Files is one, you know, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
Right.
Well, see, they had binders. They were standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to
Well, what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative display of the Epstein Files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. Like, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole. We could go down most of them today. Like, anything that existed from the 80s and 90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared. Right. So, like, when people say, has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking? No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. The president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents. Like, again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, no, we're going to release these files. He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, like, do I think there is I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the President of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors, ever. So, like, when the president says the hoax, that's what he's talking about, is this democratic idea that he somehow was a pedophile. It's absurd. There's no evidence for it. Now, the Epstein law gets signed. We find 6 million documents. We find out 3 million of them are actually responsive, has something to do with the Epstein estate. We release all of them, with the exception of a few things that are like, the courts have said that we have to redact certain things or we can't release certain files. But, like, we did release all these files. Did it take longer than it should have taken? Yes. But we did release these files. And again, the problem here is not like anything that's in the files or not in the files. The problem is, if you go back to the original investigation, it was designed in a way that was way too narrow. If there was a broader conspiracy, and my view is that there probably was, the evidence that existed in 2007, that was the opportunity to get
So
it.
when you say there probably was a broader conspiracy, what exactly are you saying?
Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people. If you go back to the original Epstein guy was Les Wexner, okay, who Columbus, Ohio, was the wealthiest person in Ohio, maybe still is the wealthiest person in the state of Ohio. Epstein was his tax guy. That Epstein was like the genius at identifying weird tax strategies that would allow you to not have to pay taxes, but if you were being a little skeptical, would also say that it would allow Epstein to either blackmail people or to have a separate nexus of influence and control on rich and powerful people. And so I think there's an underreported, underexplored story of was Epstein like doing a lot of tax stuff that was not on the up and up, and is that one way in which he gained blackmail? It's not opposite of the sexual blackmail story, but in some ways it's you could imagine both things being true.
JD Vance is essentially saying that after thorough research into the Epstein files, there's no real evidence of anything. He claims that if evidence existed, it wouldn't still exist by now. The whole back and forth about we're releasing the Epstein files versus there are no Epstein files was just a miscommunication. He insists there's especially no evidence implicating Trump. My question is, why didn't Joe ask him about Elon Musk, who publicly suggested Trump is in the Epstein files, and that's why they won't fully release them? Also, why did they release edited footage from the night Epstein definitely...
People say Donald Trump's blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy who narked on Epstein to the Palm Beach police? That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago
He kicked
in
him out of Mar-a-Lago.
2005.
It's just, again,
Well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
But some of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
So, yeah, I've looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this, but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator. And let me highlight this in a very sort of obvious way. Ro Khanna, who's been one of the loudest voices on the Epstein file. Well, he became very loud on the Epstein files the minute Donald Trump became president, didn't seem to care about it during the Biden administration. He actually brought one of the Epstein victims, I think, to the State of the Union last year, or maybe it was the year before last. Well, that victim, and I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. I don't know anything about her particular case. She was also listed as a co-conspirator in some of these documents, right? So there's an idea that some of the people who were engaged in the sex trafficking were also, facilitating it as well.
So they were incentivized to get more girls.
Yeah, but yes, that's right. But the idea is that it's hard to sort of, it's sometimes a little bit of a gray area between, some of the people who were alleged victims were also alleged co-conspirators. And so what DOJ tried to do was kind of make that judgment as best they could and release as much as possible.
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties. So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not – there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.
So where did his money come from?
Well, from given part of it is suspect tax advice and setting up tax schemes for a lot of very, very rich people.
Right, but why was he motivated to influence academia, and what was the purpose?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I have theories. There's of course the...
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country. Or both. Look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends, he had Democratic friends. He had much deeper connections to the Israeli left of center than right of center. I don't know what that means.
He was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Exactly. He had, again, in America, he had friends across the political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy to me, because at that point he'd already gone down for at least one sex abuse thing.
That was my position. I'll show you the emails.
Okay.
They're kind of funny.
Okay, which
I
guest?
actually read them on stage.
You want to say? Okay, fine.
People can find it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the guy's already ruined.
Sure. But dude,
I Googled it and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, but this goes back to my original point.
But this is part of what he was doing,
correct.
Right? He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh-huh.
All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his power. That's when he hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal. It's your point, right? Even if you have some scumbags who are willing to introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017, there are a lot of Joe Rogans, or at least some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out that he's a predator.
A lot didn't.
And
that was really crazy.
A lot didn't, but some did. And my point is that would limit his influence. But if you go back to the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era. And
because you think it was destroyed.
I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Right. So they were specifically going after him for underage sex. And they didn't look at the full picture of the operation.
They didn't even try to. They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that he
said he was CIA or something.
Yeah.
Right?
He said I was told he was intelligence.
That's right. And yes, I've asked were there documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's? And the answer is no. But if that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.